Mark Skaar on the Skaar Kaard on 103.7 The Fox. Proud to bring in Warner E. Hodges. Warner, how are you? Welcome.
Oh, wow. I'm great. Thank you for having me, Mark.
Yeah, our pleasure. And I wanted to talk about a few things. The first of all, the newest record, the Warner E. Hodges Band, Just Feels Right. This is a barn burner. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We worked real hard on it, and I guess this is my second record with my actual real band. I did a live record last year. This is the first studio record with the band, with my British guys, and they are amazing.
Yeah, and how'd you find these guys, Warner?
Well, I started, I had played with Dan Baird from the Georgia Satellites for years. I played with Dan for 12, 13 years, but Dan has had 2 different cancer bouts in the last 2 years, which he survived, but he decided he was done touring. He didn't want to tour anymore, and he'd been talking about it for a few years. So I started doing solo stuff 5, 6 years ago, and I just slowly pieced together a band. I looked up and found my drummer first, a guy named John Powney, and then Jason Knight, my bassist, and now I've got Ben Marston playing guitar with us, and I've put together a pretty rock and roll little band.
Yeah, and I like this record, Warner, because it kind of crosses all genres. I know you love rock and roll and country and punk, all of it. It's all in there.
I just like, I guess, it's kind of the Nashville thing. It's like I never have understood why we couldn't listen to... we couldn't listen to AC/DC and Hank Williams and the Ramones. I just didn't understand why. It's living in Nashville. You're going to get bombarded with country music. You better be able to play something, or you ain't going to be able to live very long as a musician.
Right.
I was raised playing country music, and I love all genres of music.
And a track like "The Magician" is certainly in that wheelhouse.
Yeah, it's a fun tune. That was actually written by Keith Christopher and Dan Baird, and I think Joe Blanton helped finish that one up. And when Dan played it for me, he'd had that song for years. And I was just like, dude, if you're not going to use that, that's going on my record. I just heard it as a traditional country song,
I think my favorite song on this record is "Last Train Out of Town."
Oh, that's good. That's real good. That's kind of a tilt of the hat to Skinnerd or even Rossington Collins a little bit.
It's there.
It's a good tune.
Catchy chorus.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And, you mentioned Dan Baird and Joe Blanton. Joe's been on our show before recently, and we've been playing tracks from this record and the live album and the Bluefields record, which we'll all get to in a moment. But I know that Dan and Joe are so very integral to your central operations. Let's talk about those guys.
Oh, dude, for sure. Since I started playing with Dan in real early 2007, I don't think I've done anything that Dan wasn't a part of. And I go back with Joe to the 70s. I've known Joe for since right out of high school, I guess. And Joe, for the last 10, 12 years, almost everything I've recorded has come out of Joe's studio. Joe's been very integral. Joe and Dan both been very integral. All of my solo stuff they've been involved with. They're both amazingly talented guys.
So let's jump to Live at Bootleggers. There's a great cross-section of originals and covers, and your love of AC/DC is there not once, but twice.
Well, I've seen AC/DC 105 times.
Wow.
It's why I play guitar. I was a drummer, and when I saw them the first time, I was like, oh, I want in on that. I'm just a fan, and kind of fortunate, I guess. Angus is a bit of a Jason and the Scorchers fan, so it was a tip of the hat to the guys that got me going.
And the Sabbath cover smokes too.
That is I joke with Dan about it. If I mentioned to Dan that I wanted to do a Black Sabbath cover, he would just look at me like I was nuts. My British guys, of course, just jumped all over that, and my drummer, John Powney, is, all the guys are amazing. But John's an amazing musician, and there's no way I could get him to do a drum solo. And the Black Sabbath song is basically it's a drum solo wrapped up as supposedly a song. So
kind of is, yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, but Bill Ward, he was a great drummer, man.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And Geezer Butler, what a rhythm section.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Talking with Warner E. Hodges, and I wanted to talk about the new Bluefields record, too. We've been playing most of this on and off throughout the year. Day in the Sun and the aforementioned Guilty Parties are on this as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, and the bootleggers thing, Joe didn't have anything to do with recording it, but he mixed it. Mm-hmm. So, the bootleg, the Bluefields record, it's a fantastic record. I don't know when I listened to it last. I don't even. I'd have to be reminded of some of the songs on it. We've done so much stuff in the last few years.
Right.
But I know, Joe is an amazing singer, and it's a good record. It's a great little band. We got Brad Pemberton playing drums, who's Steve Earle's drummer.
Yep.
Dan's playing bass and guitar. I'm playing guitars, and Joe's singing. It's a good record.
Blowing Sunshine, the lead track, great stuff.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Got a cowbell in it. Got to have a cowbell.
Yeah. I just had Albert Bouchard on the show a couple weeks ago, and I said, for Bluest Your Cult, I said, it's a gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
He liked that.
Dude, those songs, you think about those classic songs that have that cowbell, they're classics, Mississippi Queen,
yep.
American Band, it's like, take the cowbell out. You ain't got the same thing.
No, it's not the same thing. Warner Hodges is my guest right now. Warner, let's talk about the album cover for Just Feels Right. Where was that taken?
That is kind of it is actually put together by James Brown, the guy that's done all of my, and yes, that is his real name, James Brown. He's done all of my artwork for the last, I guess, started doing it for Gunslinger. He'd been doing my T-shirts before that, but he's done all of the album artwork for the last 4 records, I guess. And I'm a big fan of the Clint Eastwood era, Man with No Name era of Clint's films, and I wanted something with a Western theme, and there you go.
And there it is. And I understand this record is up for a Grammy consideration. Two
different, I think, Americana and Album of the Year. I'll believe that when I see it, but it's nice to be mentioned and all that stuff.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a nice accolade. So let's see what happens there.
Yeah,
Fingers crossed for you.
The fact that I'm even being considered is like, all right, cool. I'm into that.
Yeah, that's very cool. We're talking with Warner Hodges. I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the tremendous loss of Eddie Van Halen.
Oh, yeah. Good Lord. That guy completely changed the way we look at guitars. I saw him the first time before the first Van Halen record was released the next day in Nashville.
Wow.
Went out and bought it, of course. I saw him the night before. They opened up for Journey and Montrose.
Okay.
And, Eddie was still playing solos with his back to the audience, Wow. You heard what was coming off stage, and yet, as an audience member, you just sat there going, "What in the hell is that? How's he doing that?" It completely changed the way we look at the instrument.
Yeah, for sure. And as we're speaking today, you may have heard Ken Hensley from Uriah Heep passed.
I was a big fan of Uriah Heep. It didn't Kerslake passed just a few weeks ago?
Yeah, Lee Kerslake just passed away. This was a shock. Nobody was expecting it.
That's too bad. My older brother was really into Uriah Heep, so I become a fan at a real young age too.
Cool. We mentioned AC/DC earlier. They're getting ready to release a new record. How thrilling is that in this day and age? It's 2020 and they're still doing it.
Well, for me, any AC/DC record's going to be a good record. I'm in. Maybe they'll tour. I hope they do. I'm in for that too. It's one of the few things I get to go to, and I just become that 15-year-old kid one more time. I love AC/DC. I've heard the one track. I'm a big fan. So.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think Brendan O'Brien's still at the controls with them. Well, that's a really good thing.
Mm-hmm. What's the rest of the year looking like for you and into next year?
Well, musically, I'm recording a record right now with Jeff Johnson, the original bass player for Jason and the Scorchers.
Okay.
Jeff and I we did an interview together, the first one we've done together in years. And, Jeff and I go back literally to the 70s also. And, we got to talking, one thing led to another. We got together and jammed, and all of a sudden we're recording. So we're in the middle of recording a new record with that. I don't see my next, I think the tour, my solo tour is supposed to happen in May. The tour that's been canceled twice this year, supposed to happen in May of 21. I hope that's the case. I'll believe it when I see it. But, the COVID thing keeps knocking that out of the park, and I get it. Realistically, we don't need to be out there playing shows until, there's a vaccine or a way to treat people where the coronavirus is more under control,
Right. I see there's
I can't imagine being in a sweaty, packed club at this particular point. So.
No. I see there's a Sweden Rock date that was just announced, a day or two ago?
Yeah, they always book out. I mean, I was supposed to do this past year's Sweden Rock. So I think, that's a huge, I think it's the biggest festival in Europe.
Yeah, Homemade Sin's done that, so.
Yeah, we've done it. Homemade Sin's done it twice. I've done it once with Jason and the Scorchers.
Warner, if people want to find you online or buy the records, there's some cool new shirts that you have, too. How can people get them?
They can go to WarnerEHodges.com, and that will take you to my store. A lot of my new stuff, there is a link there that will take you to the European record label for the new record and new shirts. And that's the way to get a hold of me, WarnerEHodges.com, or you can get a hold of me on Facebook, too.
Fantastic. Warner, thank you as always. Happy holidays, and we'll have you back next year.
Thank you, Mark.
For Warner E. Hodges, I'm Mark Skaar. This is a Skaar Kaard on 103.7 The Fox.